Story 1. I had been hiking alone for almost 4 hours when the fog started rolling between the trees. At first, I thought it looked beautiful. The forest had been completely silent all afternoon, except for my boots crushing wet leaves under me. No birds, no wind, just silence, thick enough to make me hear my own breathing. I checked my phone again, hoping for a signal, but the screen stayed dead. I remember realizing I hadn't seen another person since entering the trail. That was when I noticed the first strange thing. A backpack was hanging from a branch about 20 feet ahead of me. It looked old and soaked from rain, swaying slightly, even though the air was completely still. I walked closer and saw the zipper half open. Inside were clothes, a flashlight, and a wallet covered in dirt. The ID card inside showed a man's face, staring directly at me. The expiration date was from 12 years ago. Then, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around immediately, expecting another hiker, but there was nobody there. The footsteps stopped the exact second I stopped moving. I stood frozen, listening carefully, trying to convince myself it had been an animal. My chest tightened when I realized the forest had become even quieter somehow. It felt wrong, almost staged. I shoved the wallet back into the backpack and kept walking faster down the trail. The fog thickened until I could barely see 10 feet ahead. Every few seconds, I glanced behind me because I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was matching my pace deeper in the woods. Then, I saw a light. A weak yellow glow moved slowly between the trees off the trail. At first, I thought it was a lantern, but the movement felt strange, almost jerky. I called out for help, but the light immediately stopped moving. A few seconds later, it disappeared completely. That should have been enough for me to leave. But then, I heard somebody whisper my name from inside the forest.
I didn't understand how anyone there could know my name. The whisper sounded close enough to be beside my ear. I spun around so fast I nearly slipped in the mud. But again, there was nobody there. My heartbeat became painfully loud as I backed away from the trees. I kept telling myself someone was messing with me. Maybe campers, maybe hunters, anything logical. Then, I found the cabin. It stood hidden behind thick pine trees, a few yards away from the trail. The wood looked rotten and dark from age, and one of the windows had been boarded shut from the inside. A dim light flickered behind the dirty glass. I should have kept walking. Instead, I stepped onto the porch and knocked once. The light inside instantly went out. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, I heard slow footsteps moving across the floor toward the door. Not normal footsteps, dragging footsteps. And right before the handles started turning, I noticed dozens of deep scratches covering the outside of the door. I stepped back as the handle slowly turned from inside. I didn't wait to see what came out. I dropped off the porch and backed into the trees. But my legs felt slow, like the forest was resisting every step. The door creaked open behind me anyway. I didn't turn at first, but I heard something slide onto the wooden floor of the porch. Not walking, dragging itself forward in uneven, heavy movements. I finally glanced back for a split second and saw only darkness inside the cabin, except for something pale filling the doorway.
It didn't fit the shape of a human. Too tall, too narrow, bent in the wrong places. I ran. I pushed into the forest, branches snapping against my arms and face, fog swallowing the trail instantly. My flashlight was gone. I don't even remember dropping it. Behind me, the movement didn't stop. It got faster, closer, like whatever it was had decided I wasn't allowed to leave. And then I realized something worse. It wasn't chasing me on the ground. It was moving between the trees. I could hear it shifting from one side of the forest to the other, without passing through the space in between. Like it was skipping. Every few seconds, I'd hear it directly beside me, then behind me, then ahead again. My breathing turned into panic as I tried to follow what I thought was the trail, but the fog had erased everything. There was no direction anymore. My phone suddenly buzzed in my pocket. No signal, but it still lit up. One notification from an unknown number. It said, "Stop running. You already left." I almost dropped the phone. My legs kept moving anyway, instinct taking over. That's when I noticed something carved into the trees I passed. Deep scratches forming symbols I didn't understand. They weren't random. They were repeating. And every tree I passed had the same word scratched into it. My name. I stopped in the middle of nowhere, gasping, realizing I was completely lost. The forest felt circular now, like I was being guided without moving forward. The fog opened slightly ahead of me, revealing a clearing I swear I hadn't seen before. In the center were backpacks, dozens of them, hung from branches, laid on the ground, covered in dirt and age. My heart dropped when I saw the one lying closest to me. It was mine. The same one I had been carrying earlier. Same tear on the strap, same water bottle clipped on the side. I hadn't noticed when I dropped it. But I hadn't dropped it. I slowly looked around the clearing and saw something worse. Footprints in the mud, circling inward. All of them mine. Different sizes, different depths. Like I had walked here over and over again for years. Then I heard my own voice behind me, whispering, "I thought I told you. Stop running." I turned around and I saw myself standing there. Story 2. I still remember the day I entered that forest like it was something completely normal. I was just looking for a quiet hike, somewhere far from the city noise, somewhere I could clear my head. The trail was marked at first, but after maybe an hour, everything started to feel off. The trees got thicker, the light got darker, even though it was still afternoon. I checked my phone, and there was no signal at all, which was strange because I had service just before entering. I kept walking anyway, telling myself it was nothing. Then I noticed the silence. No birds, no insects, nothing moving around me. It felt like the forest was holding its breath. That's when I saw something hanging between two trees ahead of me, swaying slightly, even though there was no wind. I stopped walking immediately and felt my chest tighten right then and there. I walked closer, even though every instinct told me not to. What I saw hanging there wasn't just a backpack like I first thought. It looked old, soaked, almost rotting, like it had been there for years. The straps were stretched thin, and
but something inside kept shifting slightly, as if it wasn't empty. I remember reaching out and touching it before I could stop myself. It was colder than anything I had ever felt, colder than the air around me. When I opened the front pocket, I found a wallet inside, covered in dirt, and something dark that looked like dried blood. My name was written on a small piece of paper inside it. That's when I heard footsteps behind me, slow and deliberate, moving through the leaves. I turned around slowly, but there was nothing there, except trees and shadows getting darker, too dark to trust anything else. I started backing away without taking my eyes off the trees, feeling like something was watching me from every direction at once. The forest no longer felt like a place. It felt like a trap. Every step I took seemed to take me deeper instead of out. I tried to find the trail again, but everything looked the same, like the forest had changed while I wasn't paying attention. Then I saw it again, the backpack hanging in front of me, the exact same one I had just inspected. My heart started pounding because I knew I had walked in a circle without realizing it. That's when I heard my name, whispered right beside my ear, even though I was completely alone. I froze immediately, unable to move or breathe properly, as something slowly stepped out from behind the trees, closer than anything should have been. I couldn't move when I saw it step out. It didn't look fully human, but it also wasn't something I could easily explain. It was tall, too tall for the space between branches, and it moved like it already knew exactly where I was standing. Its face looked wrong, like it was trying to remember how to be human, rather than actually being one. I remember backing up slowly, feeling my feet sink into wet leaves. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to run, but my legs wouldn't respond at first. Then, it tilted its head slightly, like it was studying me. That's when I realized it was wearing something familiar. A jacket I had seen earlier in the forest, on the backpack hanging from the tree. Except now, it was on it, like it had always belonged there, and I was the one who didn't belong anymore. I finally ran, breaking whatever frozen state I was in, pushing through branches that scraped my arms and face. I didn't care anymore about direction. I just wanted distance between me and that thing. Behind me, I could hear it moving. Not running exactly, but keeping up without effort. The sound of leaves crunching came from different sides of the forest at the same time, like it was everywhere at once. I checked my phone while running, and somehow it had signal again. But the screen was glitching, flashing between my home screen and a map that showed I was standing perfectly still in the middle of nowhere. My breathing was so loud I could barely hear anything else. But then I heard my own voice again, calling my name from deeper in the forest. Not where I came from, but where I was heading. That made me stop for half a second before something grabbed my backpack strap from behind me with force. I fell forward when the strap got pulled so hard I lost balance, crashing into the ground. When I turned around, there was nothing behind me, but my backpack was gone from my shoulders. Instead, I saw it being carried deeper into the forest by something I couldn't fully see anymore. The trees around me started looking familiar again, like I had already passed them multiple times. Then, I noticed footprints in the mud ahead of me. My footprints, but fresher than they should have been, like I had already been walking here before I even arrived. I slowly looked up and saw the original trail marker I'd started from, except it was now behind me. That's when I heard a voice right next to me again, whispering that I never actually entered the forest alone, and I finally saw myself standing on the trail, watching me from the beginning.
Story 3. I still don't know why I decided to take that shortcut through the forest that afternoon. I was driving between two towns and my GPS suggested a faster rural route, so I followed it without thinking. The road eventually turned into dirt, then into nothing more than tire tracks, disappearing into trees. I parked when I realized I hadn't seen another car for a long time. I stepped out anyway, thinking I could just walk and find a signal again. The air felt colder the moment I entered the forest, like I had crossed some invisible line. Everything was too quiet. Even my footsteps felt muffled. I remember checking my phone repeatedly, watching the battery drain faster than normal. Then, I noticed something odd carved into one of the trees near the path. Deep scratches, forming shapes I didn't recognize, almost like someone was marking the way I had come. I felt like I was already being watched.
I tried to stay calm and keep walking forward, telling myself I would find the road again if I just kept going in one direction. But the deeper I went, the more the forest seemed to close in around me. The trees grew closer together, blocking out what little light was left. I started hearing faint sounds behind me, like slow steps matching my pace. But every time I turned around, there was nothing there. I remember stopping once just to listen, and that was when everything went silent all at once. Even the wind disappeared completely. My phone suddenly lost all signal, and the screen started glitching between normal time and something that looked like the same time repeating over and over. Then I saw a backpack sitting in the middle of the path ahead of me, like it had been placed there just for me to find. I approached the backpack slowly, already feeling that something was wrong. It looked brand new, too clean for a place like this, almost like it had just been dropped there. I knelt down and unzipped it, expecting supplies or maybe an ID. But instead, I found my own jacket inside, folded neatly, as if someone had packed it for me. My hands started shaking immediately because I knew I hadn't lost it before entering the forest. I turned around quickly, and that's when I noticed something terrifying. The path behind me was gone. There was no road, no entry point, only endless trees stretching in every direction. My phone buzzed once in my hand with no notification, just a blank screen lighting up by itself. Then I heard my own voice behind me, softly saying my name, like it was waiting for me to respond. I turned around immediately when I heard my name, but I was still alone. The backpack behind me was gone. The path I had just walked started looking different, like it had been used for years instead of minutes. The trees felt rearranged, as if the forest had shifted while I wasn't looking. I tried to back away, but every direction looked the same now. My phone vibrated again, but there was still no signal. This time, the screen showed a map, but it wasn't my location. It was moving on its own, like something was carrying me across it. I could hear footsteps again, closer than before, circling me slowly.
I kept spinning, trying to track them, but they were everywhere at once. Then, I noticed something carved into my arm. Fresh scratches, forming the same symbols I had seen on the trees earlier, and I don't remember when they appeared. I stumbled backward, trying to wipe my arm, but the scratches wouldn't fade. They looked deeper than skin, like they had always been there. The forest around me began to darken, even though it should still have been daylight. I remember hearing breathing that didn't match mine, coming from just behind my right shoulder. When I turned slightly, I saw movement between the trees, someone standing exactly where I had been a moment ago. It looked like me, but not right. Too still, like it was waiting for me to understand something. My phone screen flickered again, showing a live camera view of me from above, even though there was nothing in the sky. The image zoomed out slowly, revealing more copies of myself scattered through the forest, all standing in different positions, all facing inward, toward me. Then the voice spoke again, but this time it was inside my head instead of behind me. I stopped moving completely when I realized the voice in my head wasn't separate from me anymore. It felt like my thoughts were being repeated before I could finish them. The copies in the forest all took one step closer at the same time, like they were responding to a signal I couldn't hear. I tried to run, but my legs didn't respond the way I expected. Instead, I felt lighter, almost detached from my own body. I looked down and saw that the scratches on my arm were spreading across my skin like branches. My phone dropped from my hand, but I could still see the screen floating in front of me, showing me standing where I had started, holding a backpack. Then I understood. I was the one already in the forest, and the version of me outside had never actually existed at all. It was only waiting